Episode 12 of the Consistency Podcast is here. My name is Steve from Gloucester, and this should have been a very quiet week on the Kirk Minahan Show front with the guys being on vacation. But of course, this is the Kirk Minahan Show, so there had to be some sort of controversy, and this time it stems around the delayed release of the 2023 Best Of. In years past, the Best Of was always released on or before December 27th, so when there was a delay this year, the Minifans took to Twitter, they took to Reddit, they took to all the social media platforms, and they let the producers know just how disappointed they were in the Best Of being delayed. And Coleman made matters worse when someone asked him on Twitter when the release was going to happen, and his answer was December 29th or December 30th. That ambiguous answer was basically Coleman putting a golf ball on the tee for Kirk, and Kirk smashed one right down the fairway in his takedown of Coleman. He quote tweeted Coleman's answer and said perfect timing. He then followed up with another tweet saying that the Best Of was going to be released in April. Those two responses were essentially throwing bread to hungry seagulls because the Minifans went back on the attack. They crucified Gus and Coleman to the point where they asked for them to both be fired. Now, of course, in the past, I'd be one of the people leading the charge. But right now, I have a ban on saying anything critical or negative about these guys. So for this episode of the Consistency Podcast, I am going to play the role of Switzerland, and I'm going to try to look at both sides of the equation and what happened before really coming up with a decision here. When I was in studio last week, the guys had mentioned that they were really excited about the release of the Best Of. They said that there was right around 6 hours of content, and they felt that this production was going to be great, that the fans were going to enjoy it, and they didn't give any indication whatsoever that there was going to be a delay in the release. Now, without asking them, I don't know if they did their homework, if they looked at the past episode releases and saw what date range those Best Ofs were released. And of course, Kirk didn't set any hardcore deadline for this, but I'm sure if they did some sort of homework, the producers pretty much could have established December 27th being an internal deadline. And they should have done whatever they could to ensure that the Best Of was released in a timely manner. And if there was any delays, instead of being ambiguous, Coleman should have been assertive. He should have went on to Twitter and he should have set an absolute date and time for the release. If Coleman went on Twitter and said, I will release the 2023 Best Of on December 28th at 6 o'clock, I really don't think a majority of the listeners would have given a shit. Because there are a lot of listeners out there who don't listen to the Best Of. It's regurgitation for them. They've already listened to all the episodes, so why listen to a Best Of? But there are a lot of fans that enjoy the Best Of. And they look forward to hearing it, especially earlier in a week, so that they can listen to it while they're at work. Because a delayed release means that they may not have time to listen to it over the weekend. There are a lot of commitments, social commitments, family commitments, children commitments, and those who enjoy sports love to watch TV. They love to watch football or basketball or whatever sport they enjoy, which means that they won't have enough time to listen to all 6 hours. So when you really look at both sides of the equation here, I firmly believe that the producers were wrong here. There should have been a little bit more urgency. They should have done everything they could to get this best of out before the 27th. And by being ambiguous and not being assertive, you can definitely see why a lot of the Minifans were disappointed and upset and essentially calling these guys lazy. So I don't know where we go from here, especially if you're Gus and Coleman. My hope is that they can learn from this so that when the best of in 2024 comes out, they can have that deadline in their minds that they need to get it out by the 27th. Maybe that will help. But who knows? I mean, there is a lot of people out there that will always be Statler and Waldorf from The Muppet Show. No matter what these guys do or don't do, they're going to be critical of them. They're going to lay into them. And that's never going to change. There's going to be that subset of people that will have that Statler and Waldorf mentality. And from what we heard on the last episode, they really do have an air of Teflon to them because Kirk has made it known he's not going to fire either one of them. He doesn't want to fire either one of them. He doesn't want to have to go through the replacement process. He doesn't want to interview producers again. He doesn't want to bring new producers into the studio. He's very content with Kirk, Coleman, and Gus being a trio. That is what he likes. That's what he's comfortable with. Now, hopefully, the guys don't take this air of Teflon to heart and realize that they can make 1,000 mistakes and there's going to be no repercussions. Because one, Kirk is still going to lay into these guys all the time. And I'm sure he's going to do that on January 2nd when he gets back into the studio. But they also have to realize that air of Teflon can be removed at any time. Kirk could one day walk into the studio, April, May, June, whatever, and say, you know what? I have had enough. I am going to get rid of you both. I don't care if people think that the producer search is going to be a bit. I am going to make this change. And I hope that Coleman and Gus, for their sake, go into the studio starting on January 2nd, realizing that their job is on the line every time a show is being produced because Kirk can turn on them in a second's notice. And I really hope that they continue to learn from their mistakes because right now the Kirk Minihane show is a juggernaut in the Barstool world. Kirk mentioned in the last episode that the past 2 months have been the highest rated and the most downloaded in show history. That has to be because Kirk is becoming a bigger name in Barstool. He's showing up in more of the Barstool content, like The Rundown, for example. He's also showing up on a lot of the competitive shows, The Dozen, Surviving Barstool, all the golf stuff, for example. And I think people from outside of the Miniverse are starting to gravitate towards Kirk. They're taking a shine to him. They realize how conversational he is, how funny he is. And I think these people want to consume more of Kirk's content. And we're starting to see that in the numbers. And Kirk is really happy right now. And he may not openly say it on his program, but I'm sure he is getting great feedback from Portnoy, great feedback from Erica and Big Cat and all those people at Barstool. And he wants to keep that momentum going. And the only way that can happen is if you have competent producers that are assisting him. If they are doing their job, then Kirk is happy. And in turn, the fans are going to see a year upcoming that will be the best in show history. So hopefully these guys can learn from their mistakes and help the skip. Because if the producers in Kirk are working well, if everything's copacetic, then the fans are going to benefit. And we deserve that benefit. We are loyal to Kirk. We're day one listeners. We listen to every show. A lot of people go to the live shows. A lot of us bought the pay-per-view. We bought the merchandise. And all we really want is a good product. And I'm not that type of person that's closed-minded to new people. So if there are new listeners to the show, I think that's a great thing. You know, the more people who listen, the better it is. And I hope that the show can be enjoyable to them. Because think about any show that you watch or someone tells you, hey, you got to watch Survivor or The Watcher or some great show out there, Curb Your Enthusiasm, for example. You're trusting them that it's a show that's going to be enjoyable. And when you start listening or watching or consuming a show or a podcast, you have that impression that it's going to be enjoyable. And what person wants to listen to Kirk's show for the first time and listen to him yell at producers? I mean, that to me is a huge turnoff. So the producers have to do a better job in making the skip happy, because that will mean more people will listen and everybody's going to benefit going forward in 2024. So in this instance, I do believe that the fans are 100% right and that the episode should have been out earlier, and the producers definitely were a little lazy and weren't as urgent. So I am going to side with the fans on this one. But from a producer standpoint, I do have confidence that these guys will turn it around and they will really make people a lot more happier with them than dissatisfied with them in 2024. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up episode 12. I will have a episode 13 in the first week of January, and I'm also hopeful for another appearance on the Kirk Minihane Show in 2024, hopefully in January. The guys know my availability. They know that I will be there in a moment's notice, and I will help the show any way I can. So with that said, I hope everybody has a very happy and healthy 2024. Happy New Year to you all, and I'll talk to you soon.